Buenos dias, amigos. And as we say in Ghana, Akwaba, or welcome. This is the third video in our series about the global kitchen and how there are common themes and elements in cuisines all around the world. In our first, we were in Europe and we looked at gazpacho. Then the second, we crossed the Atlantic to Mexico and made fajitas. And today we've come back across the Atlantic to West Africa and we're going to do jollof rice. Now, the history of jollof in Africa is uncertain. It's certainly true that they had their own cultivation of rice, something like 3,000 years ago. Not as ancient as the Chinese cultivation, but independent of it, so they had the rice. But as we'll see, we also need tomatoes and peppers, which came from the Americas, and a range of spices which came from Central or Eastern Asia. So let's see what ingredients we need. Okay, so what do we need? From our essential ingredients, we need rice, salt and pepper, some tomatoes, onion, garlic, peppers, and a chili. And from our derivatives, we need some ginger puree, some garlic puree, and some concentrated tomato puree, which leaves the new ingredients as curry powder, chicken stock cubes, and some mixed herbs. And I'm also using vegetable oil today rather than olive oil because we're going to need to cook things at a higher heat, so that's why we've substituted that. But a very simple set of ingredients really, but that hides a potential huge range of different flavors and recipes, and there are so many varieties of jollof throughout West Africa. It's impossible to say which is the best, except possibly to argue that the best jollof of all is the one that your grandmother made you when you were a child. So what equipment do we need? Well, again, very straightforward this week: a chopping board, a knife, a mixing bowl, a wooden spoon, a blender, and a saucepan. And that's it. Okay, so let's start with the rice. I'm using basmati, but you can use standard long grain, jasmine, even short grain in some parts of West Africa. And that very much has an impact on the overall taste and texture of the meal. The other decision is whether you're going to cook the rice separately first and add it to the jollof mix, or whether you're going to cook it all together. Now, I'm still a rank amateur at this, so I'm going to do it separately, basically because it gives you more control over how firm the rice stays. So I'm going to put this into boiling water for basically about 2 minutes less than it says on the packet. So if it says 10, cook it for 8. Once it's boiled and cooked, I'm going to drain it, cool it down, and then put it in the fridge to firm up. So back to the jollof mix. The first thing we need to do is chop up our peppers, onion, chili, garlic and tomatoes, which we're then going to fry in a little bit of oil for 10 minutes to soften. We're only really doing it to soften them, not to fully cook them, and at the end of the day they're all going to go into a blender anyway, so it just needs to be chopped into rough pieces, and then we take it all into the kitchen. So today we're doing jollof rice for, let's say, 2 very hungry people, 3 moderately hungry, or to serve 4 if it's a side dish to do with chicken or anything else you're going to serve with it. So what we have today is 200 grams of basmati rice, 200 grams of chopped yellow onion, 2 cloves of chopped garlic, 300 grams of chopped red and green peppers, 200 grams of fresh tomatoes. You could use tinned tomatoes, it's very common, particularly nowadays. Half a fresh chili finely chopped, a couple of tablespoons of vegetable oil, a teaspoon of ginger puree, a teaspoon of garlic puree, a tablespoon of tomato puree, a tablespoon of curry powder, a teaspoon of mixed herbs, and then salt and pepper to taste. Okay, so now we have our mix of fried tomatoes and peppers and onions and garlic. cooking for about 10 minutes to soften. And to that we're going to add our teaspoon of tomato puree, some garlic and ginger puree, our curry powder, a couple of crushed up chicken stock cubes. You could use vegetable stock cubes if you're a vegetarian. Chicken is the most traditional that's used, but up to you. And some mixed herbs. Give that a good stir around. Smells lovely. And then we're just going to blend that down with our blender till it becomes a thick puree. Okay, so we now have our cooked off jollof sauce, and we have our rice here. And all I'm going to do now is mix the two together. Give them a good mix up. Like this. And then what I'm going to do is add a little bit of oil to the bottom. Keep stirring. And just let that cook with the lid on for about 5 minutes. The idea is that on a medium heat so that it will actually crisp a little bit on the bottom, just to give it a little bit of a smoky flavour to finish with. And as soon as that's done, it'll be ready to serve. And there we have it, my version of West African jollof rice. Hopefully you can see the crispy bits there in the photo. Today I'm serving it with a spicy grilled chicken, which is very traditional. So thank you for joining, and hopefully see you all again next week when we'll be heading east to Asia.
Summer, winter, autumn, spring. Reggae music at the swing, yeah. Reggae music at the swing. Alright. In the summertime, the winter time, the springtime, autumn.